answer that question? Let's see, recovered heart, brain.
So, I've been studying a lot of different things for a long time, and keep increasingly want to find myself surrounded by like-minded people. And I seem to be drawing people in that are really discouraging to me, like they're asleep or something.
Well, do they feel like energy vampires?
Yeah.
You know, we have a saying, we kind of nickname energy vampires as a thing because it's almost as if what happens, like there you are, you've opened up, you're looking for, right, that which resonates and you're trying to attract at this beautiful soul level. And then there you go, you got all this other people, these naysayers, and they are just doubting. So I will use experiential language, and I will say, what it feels like is that these people at a subconscious level can feel your light. They don't have any conscious awareness of that, but they feel it and they want it. So people who tend to be energy sensitives have now nicknamed it, yeah man, I got a lot of energy vampires headed my way. So there's a whole field in psychology that we do that's a holistic psychology that helps us learn what we call energetic boundaries. So most people might have a sense of what I'm saying if it's like, oh, we have to set boundaries with people. All right, well that's like the day-to-day stuff, but energetic boundaries takes it to another level. And that's a kind of a whole long different conversation, and actually if you want to talk more about it afterwards, I'm happy to, but I probably wouldn't go to everybody else if I got there right now. But it's about learning how to set energetic boundaries within balance, within reason, right? Because we're here trying to be who we are and live our soul purpose. And I'm just going to tell you, I think everybody standing here listening is way more advanced than the monks in the monasteries. And I believe that with all my heart. And I believe that I've probably been a monk in a monastery, I don't know how many lifetimes. And I've re-experienced some of those. They weren't too pleasant, but anyway. But notice how easy it is to maintain stillness, right? If you're a monk in a monastery, if you're with all the like-minded, supported people who give plenty of stillness time, we have nothing else to do but support one another in our meditative stillness. Like, how cool is that? But it's not doing the dishes, it's not getting things done, right? So imagine that maybe we've all had these monk lives, but we're here now because we're ready to do something with this. We're ready to make a difference in the world. And you know what? You're making a difference just by holding on to that light. Just by allowing that light to come out, even if it's 5 minutes in a day, you're already making a difference. Because what we know in quantum physics is that your light radiates everywhere infinitely. Your light radiates everywhere infinitely and all at once. So you're immediately having an impact on everyone and their energy fields just by being who you are and holding that vibration pretty steady. So no wonder we have to learn to set energetic boundaries. No wonder it's easier said than done. And no wonder where we have to feel like it's good enough, because it's not going to be perfect. That I can promise you. It's not going to be perfect. But we do the best to surround ourselves in conditions to thrive. So you're reminding me to maybe just put that point out there. If someone wants to know what self-love is really about, most people that I know, if I say, do you love yourself? They're thinking they're supposed to have this romantic, lusty feeling with the self. No, that's not what we mean. And that's why most people who are souls will really not pay attention and don't do their self-care and they don't do their self-love and they keep ignoring it because they're confusing it with selfishness. So I'm going to help you know what the difference is. Imagine that each of you are a plant, whether it's a spider lily or whatever kind of plant it is. But notice that each plant requires a certain amount of sunlight, a certain kind of soil, right? A certain amount of water, and we just have to honor our conditions to thrive. We're like those kind of plants. So that is not selfishness. That is healthy, psychologically healthy self-care, and that's imperative building up the ego so that you can now transcend and work from beyond your ego. See the difference? Big difference, okay? And that's the number one job we have in learning how to set an energetic boundary. Now here's the other cool thing that you're reminding me to maybe point out. I think I put it in the book. There's a lot I left out of the book. I even was going to put tapping in the book, and the editor said, no, that's too advanced. You better take tapping out. It's like, really? Okay, here's a cool thing about energy. There's scattered states. Pretty much looks like a scatter plot diagram. And then there's coherent states. And I elaborate that in the book. And here's why it's important. When we hold steady our light, we are cohering our field. At the physics level, we're actually doing something. And this kind of coherent field is what has the power to attract, is in what most people think of law of attraction. A scattered field, I don't care how many random thoughts you have, it's not going to be that attractive. Your life is going to feel quite random because your energy is quite random and it's scattered. But when you learn how to cohere your field, and it's this beautiful physics shape, that has real power. And it is no mistake that tornadoes and hurricanes also have great power in tight spiral formations. Like, that's not just a coincidence, right? It's an amazing thing that happens when you hold steady your light. And by the way, here's the cool thing. When we're around energy vampires, but we're holding our light steady anyway, we're not really worried about doing anything to them, right? Like, we're not trying to fix them or proselytize them. We're just holding our light steady. And it's funny how if our vibration is too high for them, they actually will leave. So if any of you have ever experienced loss, hello, everybody raise your hand. I know you've experienced loss. You will notice that happens. The faster that you grow, the faster that you're changing the coherent and bandwidth of your field, and anybody where your energy is too much for, they will have to leave. They will back up out of your field. They will kind of leave your life. You can't make that about you. You can't overly dwell on what did you do wrong, all that kind of stuff, because all you're going to do is scatter your field again. But you have to realize that their field can't hold it. Now, I'm going to give you a real life example that I thought was kind of hilarious. That's probably just Valerie humor. But I remember reading in the paper one time that there was a McDonald's somewhere that decided to really boom classical music out in their parking lots because they had all kinds of, like, apparently gangster hooligans in their words hanging around the parking lot. And it was fascinating to watch how classical music so did not resonate who they are, they scattered like crazy. It worked. Classical music and sound works. The reason you guys are attracted to the music that you are in different moods is because that music literally is either resonating with who you are or it's not. And notice that when you're in different moods, what resonated then is actually grading later on, and then vice versa. That's a real thing. It's because you're really changing fields. And this is a little tangent, but forgive me. There's something that I talk about in session with people. It's called an emotional constellation. Why? Because we're all trying to deal with our emotions in some way. And I will help people know that when they're in anger, let's say, it's just anger. It's just an energy. Like, feel it and let it move. It's containing it or ignoring it that's making it, like, build up like a pressure cooker. Okay? Just feel it, get the information from it, let it move. But there's a constellation of energies to every single emotion you feel. And the logic, right? The logic and values changes every time you're in a different place. Same thing with every emotion. So, right, when you're in anger, you can't even relate to somebody who's over there in bliss. In fact, you're probably going to shoot them a bird because you're going to be really kind of like jealous. And then at the same time, when you're in bliss, you can't even remember what it felt like to feel anger. Like, you really don't even understand the road rage that you just watched because you're there in bliss. And it gets kind of depressing when you're in bliss a lot, and then everybody around you is all in a really bad mood and you can't even share your bliss with anybody. That's also a sense of loss that you can feel. Have you ever felt that one?
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty intense too. right? But that's also why mind-body things work. So when you're wondering how imageries and things work, it's because, for instance, if you know your anger constellation and you're trying to bring yourself to calm, and you know what's in your calm constellation, let me tell you what I mean by that. All the 5 senses are engaged, right? You'll have visuals, sounds, tastes, smells, sensations, but there's also secondary emotions because these energies are all linked, and there's thoughts associated with it. So when you're in anger, in fact, you may want to go home and do this. Say, what is an energy that I'm in, and I don't want to be in that very much. I want to get out of it. And notice, what sites do I associate this with? What sense are in that, what have you? And now let's say you're trying to bring it to calm. Do the same exercise. And you'll notice that that's why if I, in my calm constellation or my bliss constellation, if there's seagulls and ocean sounds and the sense of salt and what have you, with that kind of air, like that's why those imageries will work for me, because as we focus, so we are there in consciousness. If I'm going to the beach, even in my mind's eye, my whole body has to do that state. It's like it can't juggle 2 states at the same time. So we can really learn how to cohere our field by being more conscious about what we're choosing with all of that, if you will. So I would say, I've been talking too long, so I'm going to say listen, like learn to listen to the invisible spacious part of you, that part inside that you can't see, but it's more than 99.9999% of every cell in your body. So connect to the space, and actually many people lead themselves right into an expanded experience just doing that. And then at the same time, do that kind of listening and discern among the different gears that you have and balance as much as you can. It's like we do what we can when we can and give ourselves a break, because we really are here in a physical body and it gets tired and we can't be on all the time. So, let's see, did I cover everybody's? Ghosts, I didn't cover ghosts, but when we do ghosts, it's because this sphere up here that some people nickname the 6th chakra, that visionary one, clairvoyance is really seeing energies that are otherwise invisible to the physical eye. So people who see ghosts are literally just seeing those kinds of entities and what have you. And they're seeing the orb bodies, but they're seeing it in ways, and that's a whole huge subject. But if there's even more specifics that you want to talk about after here, I'm totally willing to stay and talk about it. Anybody else have a question or something that I missed? Yeah.
I guess whenever this kind of conversation comes up, I've been living in Boulder since 1987, harmonic convergence, August 1987, and I worked with a lot of healers and a lot of energy people, a lot of people on different paths, and so there's a couple, so there's a couple of things. One, in '87, because I was around so many different high vibrational people that were coming into town, particularly at Naropa Institute the entire year. I'd sit in the front row. I was blasted into a higher consciousness experience, but without the foundation of the ego, which I really appreciate you bringing in. And I was quite young. And that was like spontaneous and happened for a couple of months. And then it spontaneously dissolved. And I couldn't actually relate to people who couldn't see, I could see, I felt like I could walk through walls. I wasn't actually ever able to, but I could see all sorts of stuff. And, it's like really fantastic. And what you want, what I wanted, right? That's really spiritual. But when I came back, I saw this sort of destruction around me, sort of like one of those hurricanes, and it was and then through the years, I would work with various people who had these fantastic from here up, or from here up, or from here up.
You can tell they're really higher chakra,
They're amazing,
so to speak, energies,
when they would work on me, they had some of them were almost psychotic or incredibly aggressive, because there wasn't I'm guessing, I'm just like passing this through you, there wasn't the ego development, and I certainly didn't have the ego development when I had that. So whenever I see somebody who's in one of those experiences, I really do say, okay, what, and, it's like, and how, and it's like, and it's like, and, meaning, and now, and, that can dissolve at any moment, because that was my experience. And do you prefer that bliss to your human experience? And also the idea of like ejecting from the human experience, transcending the human experience to be somehow greater. That was my idea at 23. I want to be greater than the human experience. My path for the last 30 years is more like, how can we actually be a human being and actually appreciate those lower three, and then bring that light through so that there's alignment and, anyway, I guess I'm just passing that by just because that's like been my experience. And is there anything you want to say or correct?
Yes, actually, and I love that you say that. And I'm actually going to start answering to that point by saying, I remember a gal came in to me one time, and what I quickly realized, she had had such horrible trauma from the earliest age. I mean, some of the stuff you wouldn't even believe. She had learned how to go out of body at will. Like, that was her way to cope with anxiety, just go out of body. And I mean, just like it's a near-death experience. Like, literally, she'd be looking at her body. There's her body, but then she's here, and there's the physical body. So you're right, sometimes we can be in that pure soul energy and it feels so good that we do kind of eject from it. I love the way you describe that because it's literal. And people do that without realizing it, even in the smallest forms of dissociation or not being present. Those are some ways, right, that we're trying to kind of eject without fully ejecting, especially if we're not consciously doing it. And sometimes we can have such pure soul energy that all of this vibration feels so horrible, right? That no wonder we get ungrounded. No wonder we will walk around and be relatively, like you said, schizophrenic at its worst, psychotic. It does happen. So we have to. It's imperative, right, to ground. It's imperative. So what I would invite everybody to think about is that right now, we can probably ask anybody, and they would probably be able to tell you the difference between a physical sensation, an emotional feeling, and a thought. Most people are probably there, years 1 through 3. But I'm hoping everybody in this room learns how to do the same thing with all 7 energies. And obviously, we're just putting a cut at 7 just because it's easy. For our human experience, right? There's really way more than that. But if you really realize there's 7 gears to your human experience, be here now, bring in what we want to bring in, but be here now, right? Ground it here. Make it visible here, because that's actually why you were born. Did that kind of address it? But there's too many people who are staying in the upper body because those vibrations feel so good, and you're right, they're becoming ungrounded. Unfortunately, there's a lot of psychotic. I have a lot of clients getting hospitalized for psychosis. Unfortunately, some of them because they're psychic. But even psychosis and schizophrenia is like the worst kind of dissociation. Like they're just real. And drug-induced schizophrenia happens because, again, there are drugs that break this apparatus. It will break it. Okay, so we can't just deal with pot and deal with all of these things as if they're completely innocuous, because they're not. They really can do damage. I remember meeting one man that came into my office. I'd never seen anything like it. I just have to take his word for it. He told me he had never done pot before. He had then admittedly in grad school apparently had a major binge of it, some like 24-hour binge of it, and then he had to quit grad school. He disintegrated his personality, and when I saw him, he'd been that way for several years. And after about, I forget how many months, maybe almost a year of working with him, I remember extending my hand out to him that day and saying, you know what, nice to meet you, because for the first time, I saw that there was a personality there that was back. So it is dangerous. We have to really remember that in rituals or shamanic rituals or things like that, they back then knew what to do to guard and to get the body prepared. Most people don't have that kind of conscious choice and awareness around it. So it can be dangerous. You had a question.
Yeah, you actually already answered it. It's
Did I?
about grounding. I've noticed like a lot of like spiritual people are like flaky and they're like floating around and they're not practical. So how to address it? Even myself, like after meditation and yoga, it's like, oh, let's just float here like nebulous mist. And so how to, because it's not practical, it's not helping to live.
And again, I'm so glad that you guys are bringing that up, because I think it's a really, really important point. I had 2 hours of that myself yesterday. I could feel that I had gone into a certain state, and I just allowed myself to enjoy the state. But then again, it's about bringing ourselves back. So that's the true meaning of balance, right? It's not desirable, it's not psychologically healthy for us to just stay in these higher states. So what is grounding? I'm going to get more specific then. What is grounding for you or you or you or you or you is probably related to your conditions to thrive, all right? So it's kind of like, what sense do you like? Like that's a way to ground into the here and now. What kind of scents do you like? Smell eucalyptus. A lot of people love eucalyptus. That's a big one. Or lavender or patchouli. I can't even pronounce that word, much less spell it. But there's scents that can ground us. And it is about really thinking, like after we've had it, remember, we can get addicted to this. That's what happens. I'll just say this transpersonal can be like a transpersonal addiction. And everybody loves this vibration so much they don't want to leave it. But like you said, what purpose is it? We are here to bring, otherwise we might as well go ahead and go back to the spiritual realm. Really, right? Otherwise, why did you guys decide to incarnate here and now? It was for a reason. So think and make conscious choices about that. So start with exactly where you are and decide, let's say even for the upcoming year, what kind of changes do you want to make the upcoming year? Like, just be gentle with yourself. Like, the universe has infinity. It's not in a hurry. It really isn't. And believe me, I've had my moments of cussing at God and saying, and if you want it done any faster, then you get down here yourself. And I meant it, by the way. I feel like, beings have that power if they want to come, so that's fine. So if they want to wait for us, then fine. So we do our best. Like, give ourselves a break, right? But I think you're going to feel that feeling of purpose and that feeling of expanded bliss when it's balanced and when it's aligned, when it's hinged. Sometimes I use the word hinge. Like a door will be hinged to the foundational walls. We have to be hinged. It has to be together. Right? That's how we actually get this beautiful planet change. We're talking about harmonic convergence and stuff. I won't even get into esoteric astrology. But imagine that all these expansions are really about geometries of light and energy. And that what happens is the wave part of you, the soul part of you, okay, one little thing in esoteric astrology. It's related to the energies and forces moving through the planets, if you will. Your physical body is responding more to the forces emanating from the planet. So there's always a within, and there's always what's physically radiating. And soul is always correlated with within. And every time you jump another quantum leap or notch, you literally imagine all these cool forces out there, but you literally are changing which forces stimulate you and which forces hinder you. And that's why all of us are in a different place. So we can't just say what worked for one person works for another person. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Any other questions before I probably shut up? Yeah.
I'm going to try to make